The offer was simple. $1 billion for one night. Mr. Sterling's voice was like dry leaves skittering on pavement. Thin, weak. But the words were heavy. They landed on the polished marble floor between us and stayed there. I stood frozen, my hand still holding the duster. I was in the main sitting room. The room was bigger than my whole apartment. Windows went from the floor to the ceiling, looking out at a green lawn so perfect it looked fake. Everything in this house was perfect. And cold. Mr. Sterling was in his bed. It wasn't a normal bed. It was a hospital bed, but made of dark, expensive wood. Wires and tubes snaked out from under his silk sheets, connecting him to beeping machines on a stand. He was a skeleton, wearing pajamas. Cancer was eating him from the inside out. He was a monster. Everyone knew it. He'd built his company by crushing people. Friends, enemies, it didn't matter. Now he was being crushed back. I was just the maid. Maya. 22 years old. I cleaned his house, cooked his special food, and tried to stay invisible. I had been doing it for 6 months. It was the best paying job I could find. The money was for my mom. "Did you hear me?" he whispered. The beeping of his heart monitor got a little faster. Beep, beep, beep. I nodded. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry. $1 billion? The number was so big it didn't feel real. It was like saying 1 trillion stars. It's just a word. But I knew what it could do. It could buy my mom a new heart. It could buy her a new life. It could erase every single bill that was suffocating us. It could make me a queen. I don't understand, I finally got out. My voice was a squeak. A dry smile cracked his pale face. "I think you do. You're a virgin, Maya. I had my people check. I like things clean, untouched." My blood went cold. He had checked? The word made my skin crawl. It wasn't a compliment. It was an inspection, like he was buying a car. "One night," he went on, his eyes burning with a sick fire. "You come to my room, you stay until the sun comes up, you do whatever I tell you. In the morning, my lawyers will give you everything. Every stock, every bank account, every building, all of it. You will be richer than God." I looked at him. This dying man, this ghoul in a silk bed, and I felt my stomach turn. It wasn't anger at first. It was disgust. A deep, ugly feeling that started in my gut and rose up my throat. He thought he could buy me. He thought everything had a price. And maybe it did. Maybe my mom's life had a price. $1 billion price. The thought hit me so hard I almost took a step back. For 1 second, just 1 second, I saw it. A different life. A house for my mom with no stairs. A car that worked. No more worrying. No more crying at the kitchen table over a red final notice. That 1 second scared me more than anything else. I squeezed the duster so hard my knuckles were white. I thought about my mom's face. Her tired, kind face. She had taught me to be a good person. To have pride. To never, ever let anyone make you feel small. What would she think if she knew what I was thinking? The disgust came back, stronger this time. It washed away the temptation. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it felt loud in the big, quiet room. Mr. Sterling's smile didn't fade. It got wider. $50 billion, he said. I just stared at him. "I'm dying, you stupid girl. I can't take it with me. What am I going to do? Pay St. Peter at the pearly gates? The money is just paper now. It's a tool. And right now, I want to use it on you." "No," I said again, louder this time. "I'm not for sale." I turned to leave. I had to get out of that room. I couldn't breathe. "You will come back," he called after me. His voice was soft again, calm, certain. "You will think about your mother. You will think about the bills. You will think about what no really costs. And when you do, you will come back, and you will listen to my real offer." I didn't look back. I just kept walking, out of the cold room, out of the cold house. But his words followed me. They were stuck in my head. What no really costs? I walked all the way home in the dark, the city lights blurring through my tears. I had said no. I had kept my pride. But as I put my key in the lock to my small, shabby apartment, I felt like I had just made the most expensive mistake of my life. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that smelled like boiled cabbage and old paint. The stairs groaned under my weight. Every step felt like a failure. I had said no to $1 billion. I had looked a monster in the eye and kept my soul. So why did I feel like I had lost everything? I opened the door and the smell hit me first. Antiseptic and sickness. It was the smell of my mom. "Maya, that you, baby?" Her voice was thin like tissue paper. "Yeah, Mom, it's me." She was on the couch, propped up by a mountain of pillows. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching it. She was just staring at the wall. She looked smaller than she did last week. The sickness was winning. It was always winning. "Long day?" she asked. "Same old," I said, dropping my bag by the door. Mr. Sterling was in a mood. I couldn't tell her. How could I? "Mom, my billionaire boss offered me all his money to sleep with him today, and I said no." She'd be proud. She'd squeeze my hand and tell me I did good, and then she'd cough, a wet, rattling sound that broke my heart, and I'd see the pile of bills on the counter. The pride would feel very small then. I went to the kitchen. It really just a corner with a hot plate and a tiny fridge. The bills were there just like I knew they'd be. A thick stack of them, held down by a salt shaker. I picked up the top one. The electric company, red letters, final notice. My hands started to shake. I put it down and opened the fridge. We had half a carton of milk, a few eggs, and a container of leftover mac and cheese. That was it. $1 billion. The number popped into my head again. It wasn't a word this time. It was a picture of this apartment, but new. Painted walls, a real stove, a fridge full of food. A picture of my mom in a hospital bed, but a clean, private room. A doctor smiling, saying, "We found a heart. She's going to be okay." I squeezed my eyes shut. "Stop it, Maya," I whispered to myself. I went back to the living room and sat on the floor next to the couch. I took my mom's hand. It was cool and dry. "You okay, baby? You look all shook up," she said, her eyes searching my face. "Just tired," I lied. "Tired of cleaning up after that old goat." She gave a weak laugh. "He pays the bills. That's all that matters." The bills. There it was again. The reason for everything. The reason I worked for a monster. The reason I was even thinking about his disgusting offer. "Mom," I started, then stopped. What was I going to say? "What is it, Maya?" I looked at her tired eyes. She had worked 2 jobs her whole life to give me a good life. She had cleaned houses too. She had scrubbed floors until her knees gave out. She had given me everything. And now she was dying on a lumpy couch because we didn't have the money for a real hospital. And I had said no. I had said no to the one thing that could save her. For what? My pride? What was pride? It was a feeling. It wasn't medicine. It wasn't a roof that didn't leak. "No thing," I said, my voice thick. "I'm just tired." I stayed there for an hour, holding her hand while my mind raced. I saw two paths. Path 1. I stay pure. I keep my no. I watch my mom get weaker. I watch the bills pile up until they crush us. I go to her funeral, and I know I could have saved her. I would live the rest of my life with that no ringing in my ears. It would be the most expensive no in history. Path 2. I go back. I swallow my pride. I let the old ghoul do what he wants. In one night, my life is changed. My mom is saved. We are safe forever. I would be rich, but I would be dirty. I would have a stain on my soul that no amount of money could ever wash off. I'd look in the mirror and see a whore, a very, very rich whore. Which was worse, dying poor and proud, or living rich and ashamed? My phone buzzed. It was the pharmacy. A reminder. Mom's heart medication was ready. $487 for 1 month. We didn't have it. I had to ask them to give us half. Again. The shame of that call was almost as bad as the thought of Mr. Sterling's hands on me. Almost. After my mom fell into a restless sleep, I went into my tiny bedroom. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror on my dresser. I saw a girl with tired eyes. A girl who was trying so hard to be good. But what good had it done? Mr. Sterling's last words echoed in my head. You will think about what no really costs. I knew now. I knew exactly what it cost. It cost my mom's life. The pride I felt in that mansion, it was gone. It had been burned away by the red letters on the final notice. It had been suffocated by the smell of antiseptic in my own home. It had been crushed by the sound of my mother's cough. I wasn't a hero. I was a fool. A selfish girl who chose her own feelings over her own mother's life. I had to go back. I had to go back and listen to his real offer. He said there was a real offer. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. A tiny, stupid, desperate spark of hope flickered in my chest. Maybe it was a test. Maybe he wanted to see if I was smart. Maybe the one-night thing was just a trick. I knew it was a lie I was telling myself. A way to make the walk of shame feel like a business meeting. But I grabbed it like a drowning woman grabs a rope. I pulled on my jacket. I looked at my mom, sleeping so peacefully. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't know if I was apologizing for leaving or for what I was about to go do. The walk back to that mansion was the longest walk of my life. Every step was heavier than the last. The cold night air didn't wake me up. It just made me feel numb. I was a zombie walking toward my own destruction. The gates to the estate were still open. He was waiting. Of course he was. I walked up the long driveway. The house loomed in the dark, a giant black beast. It didn't look cold anymore. It looked hungry. I didn't go to the servants' entrance. I walked right up to the front door and rang the bell. A new nurse opened the door. She looked surprised to see me. Maya, Mr. Sterling is asleep. He gave orders not to be disturbed. I don't care, I said. My voice was hard. It didn't sound like me. Wake him up. Tell him I'm here to hear the offer. She looked at my face and her eyes widened. She saw it. She saw that I was broken. Wait here, she said quietly. I stood in the giant, cold entryway. I didn't move. I just stared straight ahead at a huge, ugly painting on the wall. A boat in a storm. A few minutes later, the nurse came back. He'll see you, but he's very weak. I walked past her down the hall toward the room of the monster. My heart was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I was going to sell my soul. I just wanted to know the price. The walk to his room was a funeral march. My shoes made no sound on the thick Persian rugs. I was a ghost in my own life. The nurse who let me in gave me a look that was half pity, half disgust. She knew. Of course she knew. The whole world would know soon. The maid who sold herself for money. I stopped at the door to his room. It was ajar. I could hear the beeping. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of a clock counting down. I pushed the door open. Mr. Sterling was awake. His head was turned toward the door, like he was expecting me. A single lamp was on, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. He looked even worse than before. His skin was the color of old wax, but his eyes were bright. They were sharp and clear, and they were looking right at me. "I knew you'd come back," he whispered. There was no triumph in his voice, just a flat, cold certainty. I just stood there, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I had a speech ready. "Okay, you win. Let's get this over with. One night, $1 billion. Just tell me where to sign." But the words wouldn't come out. My throat was closed. "You thought about it," he said. It wasn't a question. "You thought about your mother. You thought about the bills. You figured out the cost of no." A single tear escaped my eye and rolled down my cheek. It felt hot on my cold skin. I nodded. "Good," he rasped. "That's the first thing you need to know in my world. Everything has a cost. Pride, love, loyalty, everything. Most people are too stupid or too weak to pay the real price. They just whine about how unfair life is." He shifted in his bed, a wince of pain crossing his face. The machines beeped a little faster. Beep, 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 beep. "So are we doing this?" I finally choked out. The words tasted like poison. "Just tell me what to do." I expected him to smile, a dirty, ugly smile, but he didn't. He just kept staring at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "Do what, Maya? Sleep with me? Oh, sweet, stupid girl. Look at me." He gestured weakly to his wasted body, to the tubes and wires. "I haven't had a hard-on in 10 years. I can barely breathe. You think I want to buy a night with the girl? I'm not a cliché from a movie. I'm a businessman." I frowned. I don't understand." "You said—" He interrupted. "I said a lot of things. I offered you $1 billion for one night, and you said no. Most people would have at least pretend to think about it. They try to bargain. Can we make it $2 billion? Can I get it tax-free? They'd show me their greed. But you just said no. You looked at me, the richest man you'll ever meet, and you told me I couldn't have you." He paused, letting the silence hang in the air. The beeping of the machine seemed to get louder. Beep, 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 beep. "I've spent 50 years building an empire," he continued, his voice getting a little stronger. "I've hired hundreds of people, CEOs, lawyers, assassins. And you know what they all have in common?" I shook my head. "They're all for sale," he said. "Every single one of them. They have a price, a high price, but a price nonetheless. They'll lie for me, they'll cheat for me, they'll destroy people for me, as long as the check clears. My company is a ship full of rats, and I'm the biggest rat of them all. I'm dying, Maya, and I can't leave my life's work to a bunch of rats." I was completely lost. This wasn't making any sense. The offer, the $1 billion, the one-night thing, that wasn't the job, he said, his eyes boring into mine. It was the test. It was the easiest, dirtiest, most insulting test I could imagine. I wanted to see if you had a spine. I wanted to see if you had a soul. I wanted to find one person in this whole damn world who wasn't for sale. And you passed with flying colors. My mind was reeling. A test? it was all a test? I felt a wave of dizziness. I had been preparing to sell my body, but he was just grading my character? But why? Why me? I'm just a maid. Because a maid is real, he snapped, a flash of the old monster in his eyes. You scrub my floors. You see the real me, not the great businessman from the magazines. You see the sick, dying old man who shits in a bag. And you still looked me in the eye. Everyone else is either trying to kiss my ass or steal my wallet. You're the only one who's just you. He leaned back, exhausted. The fire was gone. He was just a tired, dying man again. I don't need a mistress, Maya. I'm drowning in a sea of people who want my money. I need an heir. I need someone to take over Sterling Global. Someone ruthless enough to win, but with just enough of a soul left to not burn it to the ground. Someone who knows what it's like to be at the bottom. He looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't see a monster. I saw a desperate, lonely old man. Then he said the words that changed everything, the words that ripped my world apart and put it back together in a new shape. This wasn't a proposition. It was a job interview. And you just passed. I stood there, frozen. The air left my lungs. A job interview? He kept going, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The $1 billion wasn't the payment. It was the signing bonus. My brain stopped working. Signing bonus? For what? The job pays $200 million a year, he said, like he was telling
me the weather. You get the company. All of it. The jet, the houses, the power, everything. You would be the youngest female billionaire in the world. You could buy your mother 100 new hearts. You could build a hospital. You could erase every bill in your whole city. I looked at him. This dying man in the bed. He wasn't offering to buy my body for one night. He was offering to buy my life, my whole future. The shame I had felt on the walk over here, it evaporated. It was replaced by something else, something huge and terrifying and electric. Hope. All you have to do, he said, his voice barely audible now, is say yes. Not yes to one night. Say yes to the job. Say yes to taking it all. He was dying. I could see it in his eyes. He was using the last of his strength for this, for me. I'm running out of time, Maya, he whispered. The beeping was getting erratic. Beep, 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 beep. The board will fight you. My family will try to destroy you. It will be the hardest job on earth, but you're the only one I could find who was clean enough to do it. He raised a shaky, skeletal hand and pointed at me. So what's it going to be? You gonna go back to your apartment and watch your mom die out of pride? Or are you going to inherit the world? I looked at the dying billionaire. I looked at the machines keeping him alive. I looked at the dark, cold room that was about to become my kingdom. I thought about my mom on the lumpy couch. I thought about the final notice on the counter. I thought about the word no and the price it almost cost me. And for the first time all night, I smiled. A real smile. Okay, I said. I'll take the job.